Well, hello, everyone. We are excited that you guys are here, especially because we're doing this live and it is the day before a 3-day weekend and it's a Friday. So Kevin and I appreciate those of you who've joined us, that you're here with us on a Friday, because we know you could be off getting ready for the long weekend. So thank you for joining us. I am Laura Hatch and I am the founder and owner of Front Office Rocks. And I'm excited, super excited to introduce you to a super good friend of mine. And we have been talking about doing this for a long time. So please welcome with us, Kevin Henry. Hey, Kevin, how are you?
Laura, it's good to see you. And yeah, I'm super excited. It's finally happening. It's awesome.
I know. So let me do a little homework, some housekeeping stuff, and then we'll get started. So for everyone who's joining us today, we are doing this live. You have a chat function on the right-hand side where you can chat with Kevin and I. Kevin and I are going to talk about the front and the back, the assistants, the front office, all of the things that we do well to work together and areas we can improve on. And I'm sure that's going to bring up a lot of conversation. So I'm going to be monitoring the chat along the way when Kevin and I are speaking. And if it flows, if it works with our questions, we'll address them then. If you guys can give us topics to talk about, we would love to do it. We're going to go about 45 minutes or an hour. We also are doing this as a way to investigate what you guys want to talk about. Kevin and I have been friends for a very long time, and we talk about the challenges between the front and the back, and how to cross-train assistants, and how to get help from the front to go in the back, everything that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And we want to address those issues for you. Kevin and I have a lot of experience training and speaking, and both have books on this topic. So we want to address this for you. So if you guys can chat with us, ask questions, that would be great. You can do that on the right. And then if you watch this later, the recorded version, if you comment, if you get in touch with us and give us ideas, that's what we want to do. Is we want to be able to do future webinars more on specific topics. So that being said, I want to just go ahead and introduce who I am, and then I'll have Kevin do a little background on him. My name is Laura Hatch, and I'm the founder and owner of Front Office Rocks. I started in dentistry in 2002 as a dental spouse who got thrown into the front office with no training, not knowing anything about dentistry. Had to figure it out on my own, and after a couple of years of doing that, realized that training in the front office was something that was hugely needed in the dental industry. So I started Front Office Rocks a few years ago, which is an online training website for front office team members. So we train on answering phones and scheduling and getting patients to pay and handling cancellations and all that fun stuff that we do day to day. And since now I'm out of the dental office because my business has taken off, and I travel around the world and speak to dental teams and front office teams. And met Kevin, how long have we been friends now?
Wow.
4 years?
Yeah, 4 or 5 years it has been.
4 or 5 years. So why don't you tell everybody more about your background, who you are, and a little bit about why you have an interest in the assistant world.
Absolutely. Hey, everybody. It's Kevin Henry from Colorado. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm the co-founder of IgniteDA, which is a community designed to empower, enlighten, and educate dental assistants all over the world. My background is I came into dentistry in 1999 from sports public relations, so a little bit of a switch there in careers. But I was the managing editor for Dental Economics for 13 years and the group editorial director for Dental Products Report for 3 years. But during my time at Dental Economics, I noticed very quickly that a lot of people were speaking to the dentist and the hygienist and even the front office, but there was little out there for the assistants. So I started speaking to assistants at conferences around the country 12 years ago. And with my partner, Dr. David Rice, we founded IgniteDA 2 years ago as a community for dental assistants to give them a home and to let them know how much that they matter, not only in the eyes of their patients, but also to the bottom line of the practice. And like Laura said, she and I have been talking about doing this for a long time, so I'm super excited the day is finally here, because we both share that passion for making sure that the team does everything that it can to impact the bottom line, make a difference in their patients' lives. And, I'm super excited to see where this goes today.
Perfect. That's great. So IgniteDA, we'll give you more information about it at the end. It's a great, basically what Kevin and I, the interest we have and the love we have is we feel that both front office and dental assistants were underheard, undertrained, underrepresented, no place to go. Now with the internet technology, webinars like this, we have a way to reach our people, the ones that understand what we go through. And the reason Kevin and I have gone back and forth on having this happen is because I'm so focused on the front. There's so much we need to learn and do in the front. And Kevin's very focused on the assistants. And so we're trying to get this to because at the end of the day, we need to work together. We need to work as a team. So I know everyone's probably thinking, you haven't been a dental assistant. So one of my calls to fame is I have ran 2 dental offices. I've been an office manager. I've been in the trenches. So tell me how you got into assisting and learning what assistants go through. I know you have a wonderful book, so tell us about that. Give us a little bit of your knowledge on the assistant world.
Happy to do it. Yeah, the biggest thing whenever like I said, I came from sports public relations into dentistry. And one of the first things that I did when I started working for dental economics is that I started shadowing dental practices all over the country. And I would go in to see how they really worked. And one of the things that I learned very quickly is that dental practices are often run as practices, but not as businesses. Mm-hmm. And not every employee of that business is empowered enough to do what he or she can to make the biggest difference possible. And there's over 300,000 dental assistants in the United States. I mean, it's the largest group of any dental health professional. And yet I would go to meetings. I would, be walking the exhibit floor, and I would see exhibitors, look at the color of the dental assistant's badge and say, sweetie, why don't you bring your dentist back with you? And they didn't realize the power that assistant had when it came to ordering, when it came to suggesting things. So it really kind of became my mantra, maybe. Just to make sure that there was somebody out there speaking to them, listening to them. And you're right, I've never been a dental assistant, but after all these years of listening and going into practices and consulting, and, I feel like that I've heard their main pain points. And one thing that I've learned, it doesn't matter if you are in San Diego or Seattle or Colorado or anywhere, everybody has the same pain points, it seems. So I'm super excited to talk about this today because honestly, some of the pain points are that front back thing that you and I talked about.
Exactly. And it's funny you say that. I remember I was at CDA meeting and I was in a friend's booth and I was talking to different people walking by, and it was a front office booth. It was something for the front office team. And 2 people came up to me and they're like, oh my gosh, finally something here that's for the front office. It's all for us. It's all clinical. We go to these meetings. We do have great speakers in our industry, and front office does have, just like there's good dental assistant speakers too. But when it comes to the going on the exhibit floor and all that, they do the same thing. They look at our badges and they're like, oh, you're front office, get the doctor. And it's like, well, we make a big impact in decisions of what happens in the office too. So.
Well, and a lot of times if they don't get through you, they'll never see the doctor.
Well, and my favorite thing is for the front office, and I actually had somebody tell me this the other day, the dentist goes and they buy this new shiny toy. Actually, this is the same for the assistants, I've got to imagine. They buy this new software, this new toy, and they bring it back and they're like, here, implement this, let's start doing this. And then they walk away and we're like, on top of the 62 other things we have to do, now we have to implement this new, whatever it is. And that's why a lot of stuff ends up sitting on the shelves and doesn't get used because there wasn't buy-in. There wasn't, that communication.
No, it causes a lot of friction. A lot of times they purposely will dig in their heels because they weren't part of the process of should we bring this into the practice and how does it work? You're right.
Yeah. The person that I was talking to about this, she said, we have a 9-day rule in our office. I said, what do you mean a 9-day rule? She says, when the doctor comes back and they give us something, we hold off for 9 days. And usually he'll forget about it, he or she, and put it on the shelf. But if we're still talking about it 9 days later, then we'll take it seriously.
The 9-day rule. I like that.
9-day rule, exactly. So let's talk about, somebody actually already made a comment about we sure do need help in our front office. And I feel that in the front office. I want to talk a little bit about, from my perspective, because I think on this webinar, we have assistants here, we have dentists here, we have front office team members here. I think the first thing we need to talk about is the value that that we each play in the dental office, like how vital and important we are. And I like to start with this because especially dentists listening, dentists invest a lot in CE and clinical and how can we do more procedures and how can we do them faster and better, but they don't necessarily invest in the team as much. And investing in your team is the best investment you can make. Front office, I feel, is vital, the front office team, to the success of your dental office. And the reason I say that is patients don't judge us on dentistry. They don't know whether you're a good dentist or not. They don't know whether you did a great crown and a good margin and a good shade match. they know how they feel when they're in the office. They know, were they greeted well? Did they feel comfortable? Did the team take care of them? Did they get all their questions answered? And for me, front office is the first and last person. Our team up front is the first and last touch with that patient. And they're going to remember that as they walk out, how they felt as they walked out of the office. So I think that the front office team members, we play a huge part in that impression, from the first phone call to how we schedule the patient, how they're greeted when they show up, how we ask for them to pay, and everything else that we do. And on top of that, in the front office, we not only, I know we're all focused on our jobs, but we have stuff coming at us from every angle. We have people walking in, moms with babies who are like, can you hold my baby during my cleaning? The toilet's overflowing, the phones aren't ringing, the server's broken. So we have a lot, and we play a big part in that. So investing in your team, and for me, investing in your front office is the best investment you can make, because the better we're trained, the better we understand the importance of customer service and experience, the better your team can be. Now, we can be amazing in the front, and then if the assistant walks up and drops the ball, then this is the next spot where it's important. And I think the dental assistants, I love front office. I'm all about front office, but I think the dental assistants are right up there with us, because in my mind, dental assistants spend more time with the patients than anybody. So Kevin, can you speak on that and tell us where you find the value and where the role is for dental assistants?
It's funny, because what you just described a lot with the front office, honestly, I see the same thing with assistants. And yet there's so much tension sometimes between the front and the back that I often go, do you all realize how similar you are, that you're wearing 10 different hats, and that you're spending really those two areas, assistants and front office, are leaving the biggest impression on the patient. Now, I know a lot of you are sitting there going, well, the hygiene appointment and everything else, and I agree with that. But at the end of the day, and I've had so many assistants tell me this, that the doctor will walk in, tell Mrs. Jones that she needs a crown, will walk out to start in the next operatory, and Mrs. Jones is going to turn to the assistant and say, well, what do you think?
Right.
And at that point, if your assistant doesn't have his or her clinical skills, and even his or her sales skills, dare I say, at the top of their, weaponry, shall we say, then it's not going to be a positive experience. And it's really important for that patient to know that whatever the assistant says is the same thing the doctor would say, is the same thing the front office would say, the same thing the hygienist would say. And that takes teamwork, and it takes everybody being on the same page. And Laura, you and I both know we go into a lot of practices, and we see a lot of practices that that's not the case.
Yeah, completely. And I think part of that is team meetings and huddles, which that's a whole nother subject that we can have, because that comes from the leadership and the doctor down. But we all, I feel, get into our world. I'm in the operatories. I'm a hygienist. I'm in my operatory. I'm in the front office. This is my desk. The doctor's in their office. But we have to come together as a team. Yeah. Because if you get too focused, that's where I feel like we have assistants against front office and assistants against hygienists against. That's where we have this. We become too departmentalized, and we're not working together as a team.
Well, and you see, so often it's my schedule. You shouldn't be putting patients there because you're screwing up my day. And so often at the end of the day, when you boil it all down, everybody in that practice wants their patients to be well, and they want to run a successful business. At least that's the hope for both those things.
Right.
And so, if you boil everything aside from that bubble you're talking about and the my attitude that so often creeps in, that helps alleviate a lot of these things. I know we're going to talk about communication here in a little bit, but you've got to find those common ground areas. No matter where position you are in the practice, you've got to find common ground with the other team members to make that a successful business.
Right. So before we move on into the ideas and suggestions that we have, tell me how you feel, and I didn't prep you for this, so tell me how you feel about the doctor's role in this, and how, because at the end of the day, we all work for this doctor. We work for our patients, and we work for a doctor. And yes, we need to work better as peers and team members, but how do you feel the doctor plays into that role, and how can we educate our doctors on the importance of this?
It was banged in my head as the managing editor for dental economics for so long. The dentist is the leader. And I know he or she often doesn't like that title. They want to be the clinical. They don't want to mess with the HR and the drama and everything else. But at the end of the day, that dentist, it's his or her business. And he or she is often the highest paid employee of that business.
Mhm.
So they've got to take that leadership role. And if there's drama going on, you don't just push it under the rug and you don't say, well, we'll deal with that next week. Because as a patient and as a customer, and I can tell you, I left a dental practice because of this. I was in there when there was tension. And as a customer, you can feel it whenever you walk into a business.
Mhm.
So I absolutely believe that dentist has to nip that in the bud. They've got to show that leadership skill, and they've got to make sure that they, again, find that common ground that everybody can agree on.
Yeah, it's funny. I worked at a dental office for a little while when I moved to San Diego. And I walked in and there was this front desk that was beautiful, check in, check out, really pretty front desk. But in the middle of the front desk was this wall with a door in it. And it didn't really flow. It didn't fit. And I said, that's real. I mean, this is a beautiful office, but why is that wall and that door there? And they said, because the girl that used to sit here and the girl that used to sit here didn't get along. So what the dentist did was build a wall between them so they didn't have to see each other.
Oh my gosh, seriously?
Right, exactly. But if you think about it, dentists went to dental school to be dentists.
Sure.
And all of this other stuff we have going on in the office, they would rather just do this and just ignore it many times than address it. But addressing it is important. Now, the reason I bring this up is if you're watching this or in the future when you watch this, we do have tension between front and back sometimes. We do have assistant hygienists. And we do need our doctors to understand the importance of repairing it, fixing it, changing the culture, communication, whatever. But if you go to your doctor and just complain, and point fingers and say it's them, your doctor's probably going to do more of this.
Yeah.
One of my suggestions is that you come to the doctor with whatever issues going on and some suggestions. Maybe we need a team meeting. Maybe we need some training. Maybe we need some whatever, but don't just dump it on the doctor's desk because it does become a lot of finger pointing, which isn't going to solve the problems between the front and the back or whomever.
Yeah, completely agree. I'll often talk about, if you walk into a Starbucks and the baristas are having an issue with each other, you may be a little hesitant to drink that cup of coffee, at the end of the day. And that's unfortunately what happens with a lot of our patients. If they walk in and they know that something's going on in there. So at the end of the day, you've all got to come together and say, what is best for our business? What is best for our patients? And try to put those personalities aside. And again, find that common ground, which I hope is your mission statement, or whatever you really believe drives your business. Everybody should be on board with that one thing for sure.
And that's where starting this with you and I, is that we need to understand, why are we here? As a receptionist, as a scheduler, as a dental assistant, why are we here? It's not to point fingers or to say my job's harder than yours or whatever. It's for our patients. At the end of the day, we are here to help our patients. And so we need to leave our drama at the door, leave our attitudes at the door, and come in and work together as a team. Because I'm working with dental intel, and one of the statistics I found with dental intel is most offices are shrinking every month because they're losing patients out of the back door.
Yeah.
And I feel there's two reasons we lose patients out of the back door. It's our systems aren't in place and the experience we're giving the patients. They come in, much like you said, and they feel the whatever's going on in the office, and then they cancel the next appointment because it's just not the way it used to be when they started or whatever. So I agree with that.
Yeah, I've got a friend who's a dentist in Memphis, and near the team entrance in the back, and a lot of practices have those. He has a big luggage rack, and above it says, "Leave your baggage here."
That's
adamant every day, whenever you walk through that door, I don't care what just happened on the way into work. If you just had the worst fight with your spouse, whatever, it goes there because your patients are your top priority the minute you walk through that door.
Exactly. Okay. So let's talk about, we were preaching to the choir now, like we should be getting along and all that, but we do have challenges.
Yeah.
I think that there's two kind of reasons in my mind of why I think we have challenges in the dental office, and then you can add yours. I think two things. I think, first of all, we don't understand what the other team member does in their job. I had a friend who's a hygienist, who's a consultant, and she said to me, when she was a hygienist, she worked in her operatory, she had an hour with her patient, she walked them out, she walked them back, she worked on that patient. Then she became a consultant and she started helping manage the whole offices, like training the offices. And she didn't realize until that time how much we do in the front, how much comes at you, how many things we have to be responsible for. And she realized and had a new appreciation for the front office. So I think part of it is, I only know what happens in the front. I don't know what happens in the back. I don't know how stressful it can get doing procedures as an assistant, turning over rooms, dealing with doctors that aren't having a great mood. So I think that's one of the first challenges we have. What else do you see that causes that conflict between front and back?
I think that's one of the biggest ones. It's just a lack of understanding, and we have a lot of cross training that goes on now, and so I think people are starting to understand the front and the back and everything else. But I think it's a lack of communication, and I also think that often it's a lack of respect that comes from that.
Right.
I think so often I've heard you're just an assistant, or you just sit up front all day.
Yeah.
You don't understand what I do, and I think that there's that lack of respect that rattles around in people's heads. And I really do think that it's something that if you look at what that common ground is, if you look at what each other is doing to contribute to the bottom line of the practice, it opens some eyes a little bit.
Yeah. And if, just to give examples, so if I'm sitting at the front and you're an assistant and you go to through the reception area and you go to the bathroom and you get patients and stuff and you see me sitting there, you think, man, she's not doing anything.
Must
Right?
be nice. Yeah, absolutely.
Must be nice. She sits all around all day. She gets to wear heels and nice clothes and answers a couple phone calls. Not understanding how much we deal with at the front. 4 or 5 phone lines, patients coming in, people trying to cancel. The doctor wants the schedule filled. We need more new patients. Like I said, moms bring their babies in. So I don't think assistants, if you're not cross-trained or had the opportunity to be up front, to realize that we're not just sitting up there eating bonbons and searching the internet. We're working. On the flip side, for the front office, I tried to assist a little bit when I first started, and I couldn't do it. I don't even know the handling the patients, the scared patients, getting them comfortable, dealing with the doctors, which sometimes are a little harder to deal with if they're under stress. Tell me more from a front office, like what do we not see when we're not back there assisting?
Well, you're right. You don't see the gaggers. You don't see the running between operatories to make sure that the operatories are, as one assistant said, are turned and burned, and ready for the next patient. And so often, what about those instruments? Do you have enough to get through the day? Is the sterilization procedure going okay?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the scariest things to me is that we get so busy in the back, and
Yeah.
sometimes corners are cut, and maybe that involves infection control. And that's been one of the biggest things I've been trying to push out lately is no matter how busy you are, you've got to make sure those infection control procedures are done in the back. I don't care how hectic or chaotic or whatever it is. If it takes an extra 5 minutes, you've got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's probably one of the things that I realized in my office, was the dentists a lot of times don't know. And I'm not trying to pick on dentists here. I'm just trying to open everybody's eyes to why we might have some challenges. The dentists really don't know a lot of what we do in the front. They don't know how we should be answering these phone calls with new patients. They don't know really how to quickly fill a last minute cancellations. But also in the back, the last time the dentist learned about sterilizing instruments was probably in dental school.
Sure.
If that, right? And things change and OSHA changes and all the things. And so what happens is when you don't know how to train somebody or lead somebody on it, you just hope they know what they're doing. And so the dental assistants are in the back turning over rooms and trying to keep up with the schedule. And we're putting pressure on you in the back, the assistants. And if you're cutting corners, that's when you're going to have bigger problems in the practice.
Well, and think about, the delusion of knowledge, that my wife, Dana Johnson, always talks about. Whenever somebody is trained by somebody else, and then that person trains the next person, and you're not getting that professional training back there, boy, all the things that get missed along the way as it goes down. So it's so important to have that training, whether it's OSHA, whether it's software training, whatever it might be. It's so critical to have that every year.
One of the things I'm trying to change the idea in our industry is I believe that everybody should have 1 hour of training a week. And it could be cross training, it could be video training, it could be watching this webinar, it could be reading an article, but we're so focused on production, go, that we don't stop to invest in our team. And also we get beat up. I mean, how many times patients come in and say, I don't want to be here. Like sometimes I joke with my team, I'm like, we don't want you here either. Don't worry.
I agree. And it's such a, that's the problem. And you talked about it earlier about the front desk being that, first and last impression. And so often these patients are scared when they come in there. And that's where I see the assistant playing the role of bartender, playing the role of, I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to hold your hand. I'm going to tell you it's all going to be okay. And that's nothing that you're really ever taught, but it's something I think that comes with the territory as well.
Yeah.
And each of us have those things in our job that we're like, that's not on my resume anywhere, but yet it's so crucial to actually succeeding.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I tease it. I say I don't think anybody really grew up thinking they were going to be a dental front office manager or receptionist.
Right.
It's probably the same with assistant. I mean, maybe a little bit more on the assistant side, but we all kind of fell into these roles for whatever reason. But then we need to make sure that we're training and making sure that we're, all on the same page.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
the next thing that I was going to talk about that I think causes the biggest conflict, or where the conflict starts, is the schedule. And somebody actually already mentioned that also.
Yep.
Here's where I say the schedule is the most important system in the dental office, because the schedule affects everybody, front,
Sure.
back, assistant, doctor, everybody. And here's where I think the drama starts. So we are on the front, we answer the phone, there's an emergency patient, we're trying to put the emergency in, the day is full. The doctor walks by and we say, where should we put the emergency? And the doctor, who doesn't need to eat most of the time, says lunch or at the end of the day. So we put the emergency in at lunch at the end of the day. Now the assistants are in the back and they're upset with us because we squeezed another one in at lunch. They don't get to have lunch at the time they were supposed to. They're running behind already. They got to seat this emergency. The hygienists are over on their side. They're upset because the doctor now is in the emergency, so they're late getting an exam. Their patients running behind. The front office is thinking, if those guys would just work faster, we could all get to lunch. So one of the big things I think that causes the biggest stress in the dental office is the schedule, because it does run all of us. So what do you think about that? Is that, you agree in the back?
No, you're exactly right. The schedule is one of the biggest things, because so often the assistants, they need that bio break. They need the lunch, and I mean, everybody in the back does, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's also one of those things that I think, if you don't know what's going on up front, then you think it's the Wild West and people are just throwing people on here left and right. And I think that it goes back to that understanding we talked about earlier. What is your practice's protocol for scheduling? Do you have a set time for emergency patients? And if it's noon or the end of the day and this is causing a lot of havoc and causing a lot of friction, maybe it's time to revisit that a little bit. Maybe it's time to say, is there another time in our schedule that we should block out just in case Mrs. Jones calls us?
Yeah. Well, what I suggest when I'm teaching front office team members, because when I say this, they say, oh my gosh, that's so right. That's what happens in our office all the time. So in the morning huddle, I suggest that we ask, when are some good times for emergencies today? And I don't think they should be at lunch at the end of the day. I mean, unless it's literally somebody fell off their bike and broke their teeth out.
Sure.
You love it when they call in and they said, my tooth's been hurting a week and now it's Friday before Labor Day and I need to get seen.
You fit me in, right?
Yeah, exactly. Fit me in at 5:30. But I suggest that the front office team members ask the dental assistants when are good times for emergencies, not the dentist. Because the dental assistants are the ones that have to seat them. They're the ones that have to find out what's going on, take the x-rays, have the room available. And when you ask the assistants when's a good time and you put the emergency in at that time, then they can't be upset with you.
Because and that opens up that conversation and that communication. You're exactly right. It's something that then the assistant starts going, okay, we've got to think about this.
Yeah.
And work together on a solution. It seems so commonplace. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are watching this and just going, that would never work in my practice. Well, have you tried? Have you really given it a shot? But little things like that, you're right. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I think the other thing too is to look at the schedule, and we might even, you and I'm already thinking of a topic. I'm thinking we should talk about huddle and what we should talk about in the huddle. Because I think so many offices go in and talk about what production do we have on the schedule? Like, what are we producing? But we should also be talking about, things about the patient and balances and have they referred and all that. But also let's look at the schedule as the day is the way it's set up and say, is there any way we can make this run better? Could we move a patient up or down so that the assistants aren't stressed in the back so we get a bio break in there? Yep. Is there an area where it's going to get quite stressful and maybe somebody in the front could jump in the back and help turn over rooms for a little bit or sterilize some instruments? Like, can we be more proactive instead of just going, well, the day is what it is, and then having people in the back upset at the front and vice versa?
Yeah, and you've heard it so many times, it's like, well, that'll never work in my practice. Well, that's not the way we do things. And I'm like, I've got to be honest with you. It could be the way you do things if everybody gets on the same page and everybody actually talks about what's best. But and this as well. So many times I hear the morning huddle, well, it's just a waste of time. But to do things like that where you're actually planning out the day, my goodness, what a difference that could make.
Yeah, and I feel then if they know, let's say in the front, like this patient always runs late, we're going to try to get their paperwork done. Then the team knows that we're working as a team to try to get the patient ready and in the back. Because we understand in the front that you need to get them sat as soon as possible, but we also have to get the paperwork done and sign their new medical history or whatever the case may be. And so when we talk about that in advance, that we're all on the same page versus just getting upset at each other in our respective areas.
Yeah. And there's things that go along with that. And I've heard so much talk about how the handoff is done in the practice and the things that can be done just in those few steps on the way between the back and the front. And, there's a whole other conversation about assistance and talking about money, whatever we're talking about, that's a whole other conversation. But again, I think that there's a lot of things that could be done to prep that person for whenever they leave, that certainly it helps the front office before the back office has to run back and start turning things over again. So, there's things that both sides can do, but I think it takes a little bit of ingenuity and a little bit of flexibility as well.
And actually, that's a good point. So as everybody, if you're just joining us or listening to this, one of our reasons for doing this, Kevin and I, is because we know this is a hot topic, and we wanted suggestions and ideas. And I'm getting some as we go along. So good. I think we should do one just on handoffs and the importance of handoffs, the handoff between the doctor, the assistant, the handoff from the assistant to the front office, because the communication is breaking down between what happened in the back and what happened in the front, or vice versa. Maybe we're having a discussion with a patient when they're in the reception area and the assistant comes to take them back, and I have a key piece of data that patient told me I need to hand that off to the assistant. So, or even emergencies. That what we do right now for emergencies is literally I ask the questions on the phone. The patient tells me everything about either have a toothache, whatever. Then the assistant comes, takes them back, asks the same questions. Sure. Then the doctor comes in. What does the doctor do? Ask the same questions, right? Yeah. First of all, that's not efficient. And second of all, the patient's like, I already told you guys 2 different times. Do we not communicate? So that would be a good topic for us to talk about.
Yeah. Because you're exactly right. You get a patient that doesn't want to be there, and now he or she's frustrated as well. So that's a bad combo.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So one other thought I have on the schedule, because like I said, I think the schedule is the most important part or system in our office. It's the system that puts us all together. And it not only affects just us, the assistants, hygienists, doctors, and front office, but it also affects our patients. Again, we talked about patient experience. Well, if the patient comes in at 2 and we don't see them until 2:15 because we're running behind, or we told the patient it was going to be 60 minutes and they've been there for 2 hours. This is all our patients know about us, and they're going to think, well, they don't know what they're doing. So the more we can get the schedule fixed, the better. I suggest that you get the team together if you don't have a scheduling policy, and you get everybody out of the operatory, get in a team meeting, and list everything that possibly goes wrong through the day. Patients run late, doctor runs behind, whatever, instruments break, whatever it is. And then how should we handle it? Because my scheduling policy in my office might be different than yours in your office, but your team should be on the same page. Everybody should agree on what happens when things happen. Because we know when we walk in the morning, there's a good chance that the schedule, the way it started at the beginning of the day, isn't going to be the way it is at the end of the day.
No, it blows up. We know that. And I would absolutely suggest that, look at your mission statement for your practice, and some of you may have to blow off the notebook that it's in, with all the dust. But, if you're talking about that you're in a caring environment, you're going to treat patients like family, a lot of the things that we always hear, really look at, is your practice doing that? And if you're treating patients like family, but you're making them wait half an hour past time, or you're frustrated when they walk through the door, that's got to change. It absolutely does, because you're not living up to that thing that you're supposed to be abiding by as a business.
Yeah. And I feel that as dental offices, we start and we're focused on the patient, and we're new, or we're smaller, but as we grow, the number one complaint about the offices, I talk with patients all the time about offices as we grow, is they start to feel like a number. They no longer feel like part of the family. Yep. And then we get focused on production. We get focused on numbers and overhead and schedule, and did you fill the schedule, and what are our goals today, which is all part of running a business, but we can't forget the patient in the midst of it. We need to make sure that the patient is always first. And that takes us coming together as a team. So I agree with that. Okay, so let's talk about cross-training.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so tell me, I know you and I are huge fans of cross training. I have different reasons for it. So tell me, I mean, it's up and coming more and more in dental offices. So what are your thoughts on cross training front and back?
From the back perspective, I think it's a really important thing, not only to help the business grow, but also to enhance that career. So often I hear dental assistants say, I've hit a ceiling, I can't go any higher. I'm just an assistant, which just drives me crazy when people say that, because it's not true. But I think that the opportunity to be cross trained opens up a lot of new doors for assistants. And again, like you and I have talked about, it also opens up eyes as far as what really goes on. And I'm a big proponent that the assistant needs to be a part of the business and needs to know numbers and needs to know how trends are doing and needs to know, are you all hitting goal for the month? And this is a great opportunity to really dive into that and see, okay, we're behind on this. What can we do? Our schedule's a mess. What can we do? And it really gets them more involved. And I think anytime a team member's more involved with the bottom line of the business, it's a good thing. So, that's my take on cross training and why I think it's so important and such a growing thing for a trend.
Right. I think there's other things too, like kind of what we were talking about earlier, but walk a mile in my shoe. That's a corporate concept. I actually just wrote an article about it, but walk a mile in my shoe. It is cross training, but not for the same purpose. It's to just be able to see what I do. You will respect me more if you sit up at the front office as an assistant and you see what I do. I'm not on the internet eating bonbons. I'm handling 20 different things at once. And the other side is I should walk a mile in your shoe and I should come back in the back and see you handle a scared patient or a patient, a dentist who's under pressure because the procedure's not going right or turning over rooms. That helps for us to have a better understanding of what goes on in each other's areas.
Absolutely. And I think that opens up eyes whenever so often when I was at dental economics, we'd say things as simple as, have you sat in your reception area before and just looked around? What's the condition of your chairs and your magazines and all this stuff? And when you look at things through a different set of eyes, it makes a world of difference.
Right. I think the other thing too is with cross training, those who want to cross train, but it hasn't happened or whatever, training takes time. It's easier for me to do it, just me to do it. Like, I know that's so if you sit down and I try to show you something and you don't catch it the first time, then I go, fine, I'll just do it. And then I kind of stop asking, do you need help? So I know that I have assistants who come up and they've got some downtime. We had a cancellation. We have some time in the schedule and they come up front and say, can I help with anything? And the front office goes, no, you can't help. Yeah, I'm good. Well, they should be able to help. So cross training is something that should be regularly done in your office, even though it takes time, so that when either maybe I should be cross trained to go turn over a room, to help in the back, sterilize instruments. And you get trained on how to call insurance claims that are outstanding or recare appointments that are, need to be scheduled. So we need to invest in that time.
Well, and, you talked earlier about, an hour a week devoted to training. And this is a great example of that. Let the front go back and learn about sterilization. Let the back go up front and learn about insurance and what it really takes to get a claim paid off. I think that it doesn't always have to be, on OSHA or any, a laser or anything big. It can often just be the inner workings of the business. And you take time and set that aside. And I think it can pay huge dividends. Absolutely.
One of the things I've heard from my clients, so with Front Office Rocks, as you know, Kevin, but if anybody's listening, I have videos, 10-minute videos on just everything we do in the front office. And I have a lot of clients who will have assistants and hygienists watch the videos on things like case presentations or consultations, handling late patients, so they understand what we do in the front. That came out wrong. What we do in the front. Yeah. Because, when the hygienist, for example, or the assistant presents whatever to the patient and then they walk them into the consult room when we go in, you don't know what happens after that, and a lot of times when it comes to the front, now we're talking money, now we're talking insurance. And that's the harder part of the case acceptance. Patients always go, yeah, to the doctor, and then they come to us. So, understanding and seeing what we all do in each other's roles will definitely help for team building.
And I know some practices where the assistant stays in there with the patient because, again, they built that relationship. And so when the subject of money comes up and the front office comes in and there's two people in there talking, then they get the clinical and the administrative side of things. Right. But there's a trust built there as well. So I know some practices are doing that. Now, is that practical with the schedule? That's up to each practice. But I know that's something I'm starting to see a little bit more of.
Sure. And you mentioned this earlier, but a point that I like to try to make is if we're talking about something here and you're like, well, that wouldn't work in my practice. Well, that can't happen. So many times I think we take on this idea that can't happen. We can't change. This is the way we've always been. And we can change in our practices. Many times we blame outside factors. Patients are insurance driven. They don't have money. There's too much competition, whatever. When we blame outside factors or we can't change, then it's not going to happen. But if you actually go, hey, maybe we can try something new. Maybe we can see how that works in our practice and give it a shot. You have more control over fixing what's going on versus just going, this is just the way it's always been.
Yeah, my grandpa used to say the easiest thing to do is nothing.
Right.
And we can sit there and just go, well, it'll never change, so you don't try anything, and so to me, yeah, I think that any good business has to try and stretch its boundaries and expand on what it does. It can't just stay in a rut forever. It has to change. It has to grow. And sometimes that's going to take new ideas, which, by the way, can come from anybody on the team, the assistant, the hygienist, the front office. It doesn't matter. Everybody's got a good idea, and everybody knows the problems that a practice may be having as far as productivity or workflow. Suggest some things. Don't ever be afraid to do that.
Yeah. And I was in a friend's office recently, and they had a thing they used to do with treatment plans, and they put it in binders, and there was all this process. And I said, well, why do you do this? And they said, I don't know. This is just the way we've always done it.
We've always done it this way. Yep.
Right. We've always done it this way. And so anything that happens in the office, if you say, well, why do you do this? And there's not a clear answer, maybe it can be revised. Maybe it can become more efficient. Maybe we can figure out a way to fix it or change it. There should be a why behind everything you do. Like, why do we do this?
Agreed.
If you can't answer it, maybe it's time to look at it and change.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't be afraid of change. Change is not a bad thing. And there's a lot of practices out there. You see them, I see them, that they're like, oh gosh, if we do that, what if? And so they're always afraid to even take that step. And I'm like, what if it's a good thing? What if it actually benefits everybody? Because I always say, if the business does well, everybody in that business should do well also, and so I really do think there's kind of a trickle down there.
Exactly. All right. So the last thing I want to talk about before we run out of time is just the importance of communication. And we kind of touched on it a little bit, but communication, again, wasn't taught in dental school to your dentist. Most of the time, dental assisting school, as far as I know, they don't teach the soft skills. They teach you the assistant skills. Front office, we didn't even go to school to what we do. And I think the biggest breakdown we have is in communication. So what are your thoughts on, when, how, what?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem that I see often is that when communication starts, it'll evolve into, well, here's why I'm right and you're wrong. Rather than here's our middle ground. Here's where we both need to be coming from, and can we agree on this point and then build from there? And you touched upon it a couple of times. It's one of those, what you don't know, you don't know, and what we don't know about each other, I think, is such a big thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think another thing that's big for me is communicating. When you start communicating, why is this, whatever I'm teaching you to do, important? Why is this play into the bigger part of taking care of patients? Why do you need to learn this? Why do we need to handle this drama between you and me? Like, why? Because if we both know why are we here? We're here to take care of our patients. Well, then let's come to an agreement of how we're going to handle whatever the issue is, or how we're going to change the policy or the process. But always start with why. I think that's a really big thing.
Agreed. Yeah, my wife's a huge fan of Simon Sinek and the whole start with why thing, and it really is something that I try to teach dental assistants as well. Don't just go along with things because somebody else said you should. Really investigate it and see, is that the best way to do something? You might be surprised.
Right. And actually that brings another subject that I'm thinking. And for those who are listening, please give us ideas in the chat of other subjects you'd like us to talk about. I think training is key. How we train. I know most people first day in the dental office, and I don't know if it's the same as the assistants because I've only been up front, but it's literally like, here's the phones, here's the insurances we belong to, here's the dental codes, here's how you answer the phone, go.
Yep. Yeah, here's how we do things in our practice. Now, unless you're an on-the-job trained assistant, and you've kind of grown up with that, as it were, sure. Yeah. But you're right. A lot of times you get thrown and go, well, here's the way we do things, and this is how we do them, period. Don't dare ask for anything else. So.
Or vice versa, you go to one person and they tell you this is how you do it. Then you go to another person and they say, no, 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 she's wrong, do it this way. And then you go to another person. One of the things, like when I'm thinking about empathy for a dental assistant, for me is in our practice, we had 3 doctors. One was left-handed, 2 were right-handed. One could care less if you had stuff there. He was really laid back. Others were very specific. Yeah. And as an assistant, you have to walk in and be ready for all the different personalities and the different wants of the doctors. I mean, that's got to be a huge stress in and itself.
You know, and you and I have talked about the different personality types that there are in the practice, and you know that whole disc test thing, you know, and how a D talks to a C, and people cry, and you know, there's a lot that goes on just with how we're wired as human beings. But you've got to take that deep breath and boil down. Okay, what is this person really telling me? And maybe even ask them that. You know, at the core of it, what's the main message that you're trying to get me?
Right, exactly. So awesome. So at this point, why don't you tell us again a little bit more about IgniteDA, how people can find out about IgniteDA, what's going on in your world, and then I'll inform everyone a little bit more on Front Office Rocks.
Absolutely. Ignite, IgniteDA.net is our website. Everything on there is completely free for dental assistants. Everything we do is free. We have some great sponsors who underwrite everything. We do road shows. We will have a full day of training at the upcoming Greater New York Dental Meeting. We are doing a full day, which I'm super excited about, at the South Africa Dental Association meeting. So all of you in Johannesburg, join us. You know, but you know, I know you and I are working together at the Yankee Dental Congress. You know, and again, this assistant track that we have there, that we're so grateful to work with Yankee. So we do in person, and we also do online. So we'd love to have you join us. IgniteDA.net. Our calendar of events is on there, and again, everything is completely free. So we'd love to have you as a member.
That's great. And I think IgniteDA kind of started right around when Front Office Rocks did. And I think that's great because you guys are focused on the assistants, and it's a hard job back there. And you guys and the assistants play a huge part in the patient experience. So Front Office Rocks, I'm excited to work with IgniteDA to speak at the Yankee meeting. We're all online training. I've been in the trenches, ran 2 dental offices. So all my training is focused on everything we do in the front. I don't consider myself a consultant. There's great consultants out there, but I do, you know, what do you do when the patient's standing in front of you and the phone rings? And who do you handle that patient? Do you answer the phone? You know, how do we handle a patient that cancels last minute? All of the things that we have to handle in the front. And then I'm also on the road too. Kevin and I see each other a lot around the country. So I'm, you know, speaking at Southwest Dental Meeting coming up in Texas, and I've been at TVSA and others. So look for IgniteDA, look for Front Office Rocks. If you like this collaboration, maybe suggest that we have a dental front office, you know, meeting like we're doing at Yankee, because I think that this is something that's under spoken about and under trained on.
Definitely.
So excellent.
Yeah, always love working with you. I'm looking forward to that full day at Yankee. It's gonna be really cool, and I know you know, some more great things are coming. I know that.
Perfect. So how can people reach you if they want to reach out to you? Is there a way to get you on a
you see my name right here, Kevin.Henry@IgniteDA.net. Kevin.Henry@IgniteDA.net. Drop me a line. You know, if I don't have the answer, I guarantee you I'll try to find somebody who does. And if you come and say, I bet this has never happened in another practice, IgniteDA, like dentalassistant.net. Saw that pop up. Yeah, IgniteDA for dentalassistant.net. You know, so often I'll be speaking and somebody will come and say, oh, I bet this has never happened before. And I'm like, yeah, actually I just talked to somebody last week in a different part of the country where it has. So yeah, reach out. Happy to help in any way that I can.
Perfect. And you can find me at Front Office Rocks. If you just go to Front Office Rocks, there's live help. There's Ask Laura. There's a way to reach me multiple different ways on my website. And both Kevin and I are here because we do talk to offices so many times that we hear, well, you don't understand in my office. Well, we do. What's happening in our office is happening in lots of offices. And now with the internet and technology and the opportunities to connect, I think it's huge to connect with people who understand your role and then learn how the others feel in the office too, because the better we can work as a team, the better we can be there for our patients. So thank you, Kevin. For those that watch this, Please make comments. Please give us ideas. Kevin and I want to do this regularly. We're actually launching a little secret thing on Front Office Rocks coming out soon. I'm launching it now, letting everybody know, a dental assistant training about customer service and experience and handoffs and all of that kind of stuff. So Kevin and I are going to be doing a lot together. So we'd love to hear from you guys about what you guys want. For those who watch this live, thank you for joining us right before 3-day weekend. We hope that you don't get too many emergency calls today. And we are excited that everybody's here. So thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. Have a great holiday.
Thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.